technique I'd like to share with you is dry brushing. It's my personal favorite. It seems to work very, very good with realistic work. It's the one technique that uses the least amount of water but gives the most precision. We're going to practice doing eyes from a painting called Daddy's Train. He has brown eyes. The first thing I'd like to do is just block in some color with some burnt umber on the iris. Unless someone is looking very surprised, almost always the top and the bottom of the iris is covered with the lids. And as that's drying, I'm going to add a few shadows to give the eye socket more shape here. Just using a little burnt sienna. There's a deep shadow on the lid, so I'm going to darken that with burnt sienna and burnt umber. Just a little bit here. No matter how someone is looking, the pupil is almost always dead center in the middle of the iris. You want to make sure that they're even and the same size. Then with black, I'm going to create a shadow underneath the lid. Just on the iris. Next, we use Van Dyke Brown and fill in the outside. Okay, while that's drying, I'm going to go back to the lid and use the combination of burnt sienna, cadmium red, and cobalt blue. This is the same color I use for the corners of the mouth and the nose, the nostrils. It's dark, but it still gives the skin a natural look. A little too dark there. I'm going to use a cotton swab. Soak that color up. Okay, I just need to let that dry before we go on. Next thing we need to do is darken the shadow over the eye. Just a little bit, because we want the eyelashes to show. You just use very, very little water with this technique. You don't want the water to run into another area. You can work fairly quickly. I'm going to darken the pupil again under the lid. Then with sepia and black mix, I'm going to add a little shadow on the outside of the eye. Make sure I have the shape right. The whites of the eyes are not actually white. I use a sky blue and a white gouache mix. And put that in the corner to darken it. And just underneath here, above the bottom lid. I'm going to use that same mix to add some of the highlights. I like to have a real bright white highlight in the eye next to the pupil, and on the other side a little more subtle one, and I use the sky blue and white and do it in an arc so it gives the shape of the eyeball. On the other side, I'm just going to add a dot of white gouache here. And that will give the eye a lot of sparkle. For the eyelashes, for a child this young, you really can't, the eyelashes are very, very fine, and at this distance you wouldn't be able to see them. So, but the top lashes are a little bit darker, so when I dry brush those, I like to flatten the brush down on its side so I get a sharp point, and just start under the lid and bring them around. Just a few, you don't want to overdo them.